Reports from Zamfara suggest that a key deputy linked to bandit leader Bello Turji has been killed during a military operation. If this report is confirmed, it could mark an important shift in how the fight against armed groups in the northwest is unfolding. For years, Bello Turji has survived repeated military pressure by relocating, adapting, and relying on a tight inner circle. That inner circle may now be under serious strain. The reported killing of his second-in-command, alongside intensified operations in the forest and legal pressure on his support network, raises a critical question. This may not just be another clash in the bush. It could be an attempt to break the structure that has kept this network alive. So the key question we need to examine is this: is the military finally disrupting the leadership system that has allowed Bello Turji to operate for so long? According to information released by the Nigerian military, troops under Operation Fansan Yama carried out an operation in Zamfara state based on what was described as credible human intelligence. The military said the operation targeted a group of armed fighters who were attempting to relocate within the forest areas of the state. During the encounter, the military confirmed the killing of Aminu Kanawa, identified as a senior figure and second-in-command to bandit leader Bello Turji. In addition to Kanawa, the military reported that more than 30 fighters were neutralized during the operation. The army also stated that weapons, motorcycles, and other logistics items were recovered, and that some kidnapped victims were rescued during related actions. Separately, a federal high court in Abuja issued bench warrants for several individuals accused of being part of Turji's support and supply network after they failed to appear for trial. These are the confirmed facts as reported so far. Any broader conclusions require careful analysis. This operation did not happen in isolation, and the timing matters. In recent weeks, the military has intensified operations across forest areas in Zamfara and neighboring states, focusing on restricting movement and dismantling bandit camps. The reported ambush occurred while Turji's fighters were attempting to relocate, which usually happens when existing hideouts are no longer considered safe. At the same time, pressure was also increasing outside the battlefield. The issuance of bench warrants against alleged financiers and logistics suppliers suggests a parallel effort to weaken the group's support structure. This combination of military pressure in the forest and legal action in the cities is important. In security operations, relocation attempts often signal internal stress. Groups under sustained pressure tend to move more frequently, increasing exposure to intelligence-led ambushes. The timing suggests that this was not a random encounter, but part of a broader effort to disrupt the group at a vulnerable moment. The real issue here is not just the reported death of one senior figure. The deeper issue is leadership disruption. Groups like Bello Turji's do not survive on fear alone. They survive because of structure. Deputies who manage logistics, coordinate movement, handle communication, and keep fighters organized. When a second-in-command is removed, the effect goes beyond numbers. Decision-making slows down, trust inside the group weakens, and suspicion grows about who may be leaking information. This is especially damaging when the group is already under pressure and forced to relocate frequently. Targeting leadership figures during moments of movement suggests an effort to break internal coordination, not just score a battlefield victory. If sustained, this approach can push such groups into fragmentation, where smaller units act independently and struggle to maintain control. That is why this operation matters beyond the immediate encounter. The first people affected by this development are local communities in Zamfara and surrounding states. When leadership within armed groups is disrupted, violence can reduce over time, but there can also be short-term instability as fighters scatter or act without coordination. Security forces are also directly affected. Successes like this can improve morale and validate intelligence-led operations, but they also raise expectations for continued pressure and follow-up actions. The bandit network itself is under strain. Loss of a deputy weakens internal command, creates fear among remaining fighters, and increases mistrust, especially if insiders are suspected of leaking information. There is also an impact on the judicial and financial dimension of the conflict. Court actions against alleged suppliers and financiers reduce the group's ability to regroup, resupply, and recover from losses. Finally, the wider security environment is affected. If leadership disruption is sustained, it can change the balance of power in affected areas. If not, groups may adapt and re-emerge in new forms. While the operation has been described as a success, there are still important details that have not been fully explained. First, there is limited public clarity on how deep the intelligence penetration goes. Was this operation based on a one-off tip, or does it reflect sustained access to the group's internal movements? Second, the long-term impact of removing a deputy is not always immediate. Armed groups have in the past replaced fallen leaders quickly if pressure is not maintained. There is also little information on how remaining commanders are responding. Whether they are regrouping, fragmenting, or attempting retaliation remains unclear. Finally, there is no detailed explanation yet on civilian impact following the operation. When groups scatter under pressure, nearby communities can sometimes face new risks. These gaps do not cancel the significance of the operation, but they remind us that outcomes depend on what happens next, not just what has already happened. For ordinary Nigerians, especially those living in the Northwest, this development offers cautious hope, not certainty. If leadership disruption within armed groups continues, attacks could reduce over time. But experience shows that progress is only real when pressure is sustained and communities feel safer for longer periods. Farmers want to return to their fields without fear. Traders want to move between towns safely. Families want to sleep at night without listening for gunshots. At the same time, moments like this can be unstable. When armed groups lose key figures, some fighters may act unpredictably as they try to survive or escape. For Nigerians outside the affected areas, this situation is a reminder that security challenges in one region still affect the whole country, whether through displacement, economic impact, or increased security spending. What matters most to ordinary people is not headlines, but whether daily life becomes safer in a consistent and lasting way. There are a few key things Nigerians should pay attention to in the coming days. First is follow-up operations. Leadership disruption only matters if it is backed by sustained pressure. Whether additional arrests, encounters, or rescues occur will be an important signal. Second is changes in attack patterns. A noticeable reduction in attacks could suggest real impact, while sudden shifts to new areas may indicate regrouping. Third is court action against support networks. Progress in prosecuting alleged financiers and suppliers will show whether pressure is being applied beyond the battlefield. Another thing to watch is community security. Reports from nearby towns and villages will reveal whether people are feeling safer or more exposed after the operation. These signals will help determine whether this development leads to lasting improvement or becomes another temporary disruption. The reported killing of Bello Turji's deputy could represent more than a tactical success. It may signal a shift toward targeting the structures that allow armed groups to survive, not just the individuals who lead them. But lasting security does not come from one operation alone. It depends on consistency, coordination, and sustained pressure over time. This moment offers an opportunity, not a conclusion. So the key question remains, will this pressure be maintained long enough to prevent regrouping, or will this network find a way to adapt once again? That answer will shape what comes next.